presentation is brought to you by the Beljanski Foundation. Over 50 years of research towards curing cancer the natural way.
So through my life, my eyes have been my bodyguard. When I was about 8 years old, I went on a picnic with my mom and dad to the Washington Monument. It was a bright sunny day. It was about this time of year, about April. My sister was there with me. My mother had packed a lunch, and in that lunch I had a ham sandwich, some Frito-Lays, and one of these green juicy pears. So as we're walking through that area of the Washington Monument, all of a sudden my eyes catch on this gentleman. He was an older black man, rugged skin, gray hair, green dirty pants kind of falling down, 2 or 3 coats on. And I saw him digging through the trash. And at 8 years old, I say to my mother, "Mom, can I go give him my lunch?" As he took the bag from me, he tore it apart. He ate my ham sandwich. I'm standing there watching him. He tears open the Frito-Lays, he gobbles those up, and then he starts into that pear. And I'm watching the juices go down his chin. The first time I remember the eyes of human compassion, and when I first decided that that was what I was going to do the rest of my life and help people with their ills. Fast forward, I'm a successful eye surgeon. I have my own practice. I started from patient 0. I'm running around. I see all types of people every day. I'm married. I have 3 sons. I'm even homeschooling them. Practicing full-time, homeschooling 2 out of my 3 sons. A husband that is a busy investment banker in New York City. I was absolutely miserable. I had everything and I was miserable. But I didn't want to tell anybody I was miserable, because when you have a really nice house or nice car, you can travel anywhere you want to, in any style you want to. Can I tell you about the day where my husband says, "I need you to go to Italy with me. Go get in the car, get in the plane, and come over and meet me." And we went to the Ferragamo villas, and a Kennedy walked in the room where we were. This is the type of life I was living. So do you understand what it's like for people to understand you when you say, "I'm miserable"? Has anybody ever been in a place like that where their life was good and they were miserable? It's one of those type of things that you're ashamed about, because people say you just don't know how to be happy because you have all the material things in life. But that's not what makes you happy. I knew in my life I was supposed to be doing something different. So one day, I planned my escape over months. I decided I'm not doing this anymore. So having a practice with other doctors walking under me that I have built to double-digit thousands, making almost $1 million a year, working part-time, I walked out one day and said, "I'm never coming back." And I fell into this deep depression. Because you know what? When you walk out, you're clapping now, but it doesn't feel like that when you jump out of something and you have no idea what you're going to do. So after I jump out of this life, I decide I don't want to be married. I don't want to practice medicine. I never want to see anybody again. And I'm never going to church again either, because I can't stand this, because they're trying to tell me what to do. and I know it's all wrong for me. So I jumped out of my life and I hit the ground very hard with a severe clinical depression, also post-traumatic stress disorder, and compassion fatigue. Do you know how high the burnout rate is in physicians? Has anybody heard about that even? I don't know how high. Do you know that the physician suicide rate in women physicians is 4 times higher than everybody else? Nobody even knows that. And when I was laying on the floor, I was happy when the sun came up because I didn't know I was going to make it another day. But when I did get up and I walked out, I decide one day I'm going out, I'm getting my own house, I'm going to move on. I walk back into my house, and I had told my husband I don't want to be married anymore. I walk back into the house in the kitchen one day. It's July 5th, 2009. I can tell you today, etched in my memory. I see this boy as I'm walking to my kitchen. I'm like about 12 years old. Who is he? My husband says, "Hi, Veronica." And as I step in further, I see this woman cooking in my kitchen. I ran over to him. I started hitting him, hitting her. I lost it. And if there were a gun in the room, there would have been dead people. At that moment, I knew everything had to change. My father grew up in Philadelphia, a poor black boy with no father. He was so proud of me. My father wanted to be a doctor, but there was no money for that at the time. My father did end up becoming an electrical engineer. And if anybody in here an electrical engineer? My father was the chairman of IEEE Computer Society at one point. Pretty good career. Taught at universities, worked for Siemens, developed the first MRI machine on the team that did that. But now, my father, he sits in a nursing home because through his life, he collected the dramas and the traumas, developed diabetes, now has dementia. And you know what? I feel really guilty about my father being there. Because I'm a doctor, I'm supposed to know how to get this figured out, but I couldn't figure it out. One day I went to visit my father in a nursing home, and he said, "Come here, Ronnie, I want to take you into the day room." So I wheel him in his wheelchair, we go in, and he says, "I have something to tell you." I say, "What, Dad?" "Ronnie, I want you to know I love you, and I'm really proud of you. You see, my father told me what I couldn't see for myself. When I became an eye surgeon, I would see all kinds of diseases in people's eyes. But what I also was seeing is their illnesses and their injuries, their traumas and their life dramas that were playing out in a physical form. What people have to understand is that your spiritual state, your emotional state is driving what's going on with you physically. You may call it stress, but what does stress mean? It means emotional fear, anger, sadness, which is driven by what's going on in your spiritual life and how you are perceiving the world. But those occasions of traumas and dramas are the universe talking to you, telling you you need to make some kind of change. And if you refuse to make a change, what ends up happening? The message gets louder and louder and louder. And so you get thyroid problems. You gain weight. You get the diabetes, the sugar, the high blood pressure, the cholesterol. You go blind on dialysis and get amputations until you start to listen. What most people need is not pills, certainly not pharmaceuticals. Supplements, maybe sometimes for a minute. What people really need is a plan to learn how to deal with their spiritual state. So thus has been my journey from internal medicine into eye surgery, where I looked into people's eyes all day, every day. And while I was looking into their eyes, they were telling me the stories about their life. And I realized that there were patterns in these stories. And people would tell me exactly what was going to happen to them before it happened. I had a woman, I was a surgeon, and when you're a surgeon, things don't go perfect all the time. It's hairy. Most days are beautiful. What you've learned how to do, it goes well. And you're like, I'm happy. I did something good. My client, my patient's happy. But then you have a complication. And you're like, what just happened? And as anybody's in here has been in a medical field, sometimes you can't explain why something happened. Now let me just tell you, anybody in here a lawyer? Because lawyers, after the fact, can explain everything. But the doctors, the nurses, everybody that's taking care of people, things happen like that. I've watched babies die from women that have been in labor and delivery for weeks with the doctors watching them, and then something happened and the baby still died. How does that happen? Because there's something else going on besides what the doctor can do. So realize that. Your doctors, your nurses, everybody can do anything they want to, but you're really driving what's going to happen with your health. First, you got to get together what's going on the spiritual level, because that's going to drive your emotions. And if you can get your fear, your anger, and your sadness moved over to the gratitude, the love, and the joy, that's what drives wellness. Stress equals fear, anger, and sadness. Wellness equals gratitude, love, joy. Now, what's the difference between fear, anger, and sadness and gratitude, love, and joy? What is the difference? It's really a perspective. Because events happen, and then you decide how you're going to perceive them. So just like you came here today, you're going to decide, she knows what she's talking about. Somebody else in here is thinking, she's full of crap. And that's absolutely fine, because that's where you are in your journey. You see, we're all here on a spiritual journey to get somewhere. And we're all going for whatever we're going for. But realize that if you're only over here on that physical side, you're the triangle. And you want to be, I know you don't like geometry, equilateral and not isosceles. And so if you only work on that one side, you're going to be isosceles. But don't we all want to be equilateral? That's everything. So as we, as practitioners, support the physical, you have to work on the spiritual and the emotional to get it together. So I urge you to partner with practitioners who can help you through not just what's going on the physical side, but what's going on the emotional and the spiritual side. Health transformation happens. Transformation. What is transformation? You go there and you don't go back the other way. We're not talking about changing. We're talking about permanent. Metamorphosis happens when you're able to change your energy in your spirit. And then all that physical stuff you're doing, hyper healing happens and it can stick. And this is the place of miracles. Thank you so much.